Time now for an in-depth look at the market news on this Monday, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Jun-sok, Professor of Economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, good afternoon. Thanks for coming on today.
Happy to be here.
Well, stocks on Wall Street were higher for the most part on Friday as investor fears eased a bit regarding the situation at the Chinese real estate conglomerate Evergrande and its inability to make its debt payments. The Nasdaq off slightly, though. What's the story in the global markets?
Okay, well, looking at the market for the last couple of weeks, there was a massive drop on Friday the 17th. That's likely due to China Evergrande. The three major indices fell between 1.5 to 2.2%. But the market basically regained all the points that they lost on Tuesday the 21st and Wednesday the 22nd, just before the FOMC meeting. Now, what makes this a bit curious is that people were expecting the FOMC to announce more or less that tapering can be foreseen in the relatively near future, and it ended up that the Fed said that if things go roughly as current, then they will announce tapering sometime in November, which means that the actual tapering itself would probably begin in December or January. So you'd figure that that would be bad news for the stock market, but it actually gained back all the points that they lost because of the China Evergrande. Now, it does seem that people are now worried a bit less about the Evergrande because the exposure to international investors seem to be less than what they were worried about at the beginning. But overall, I think this type of large movement, depending on what happened with Evergrande, as well as what's happening, the relative non-news that the tapering is getting, does seem that the markets are bit nervous, a lot volatile. They want to stay in the market while the market is still good. So the U.S. market, S&P Dow was trending down on Friday. Nasdaq was trending upward, on Friday, and Nasdaq was slightly down on Friday. And for the week, Dow gained 0.6%. S&P gained 0.5%, and Nasdaq gained 0.02%. The rough pattern was repeated for Europe, DAX, CAC, and FTSE. European market was trending downward on Friday, but in early trading, they seem to be going back up. They're up 0.5 to 0.8% in early trading. Asian stocks have been trending down for the last 2 weeks. The culprit here is obviously the Evergrande. Hang Seng lost about 7.7% of its value from September 10th. Shanghai lost about 2.8% of its value from September 13th. And today, Shanghai was down about 0.8% further. Hang Seng was down about 0.2% further. We're looking at very volatile markets for the next few weeks.
And Wall Street at least looking like it's going to have another strong opening on Monday, according to the futures. But today, the Korean market looking a little uncertain. Chipmakers with a slight gain. Some other tech shares a little mixed. In the end, the KOSPI and the KOSDAQ going in different directions. Tell us about the domestic market.
Okay, well, we only had 2 trading days last week because of the Chuseok holidays. Basically, the market, even though they had a large drop on the 16th because of the Evergrande, it did fairly well on the week before Chuseok, but it fell right after Chuseok, and it's up slightly today. KOSPI ended at 3,133.64, up 0.27%. Individuals sold, foreigners bought. Institutions, well, they bought a tiny bit, but they didn't really make that much of a difference. But in September, foreigners are buying Korean stocks again, and the stock that they bought the most seems to be Samsung. Hynix was also very highly sought because of the current semiconductor shortage. It seems to be sparking buy orders by most of these investors. For the KOSDAQ market, it was volatile for the week before Chuseok, and after Chuseok, it was trending downwards. KOSDAQ trended downward again today. It ended today at 1,034.82. It was down 0.21% today. Individuals and foreigners bought, institutions sold.
Well, Professor, data show that in the pandemic, Korea has seen a sharp rise in the number of companies and individuals filing for bankruptcy. For individuals, the number was at a 5-year high last year. And we can imagine, of course, that's linked to people losing jobs, losing businesses because of the distancing rules. For companies, much the same. That passing 1,000 last year for the first time. Give us the details on that and your view of the situation.
Okay, well, the rise in the last year is definitely due to the coronavirus, though it's interesting to see that at least for individual bankruptcies, it was actually higher in 2015. Corporate bankruptcies, this is the highest since the records, they started keeping records in 2014, but it has been rising steadily since 2017. We should remember that 2019 was not that great of a year, though it was before coronavirus. So it was better than 2020, but still it wasn't a great year, which may explain some of the rising bankruptcies that we've seen in the last few years. But what's important here is that bankruptcy can be either a new chance for an entrepreneur, individuals, or firms who got caught up with bad luck or a few bad business decisions. In the U.S., you often say that if you have never been bankrupt, investors will not believe in you. So bankruptcy, in those cases, you can use bankruptcy procedures to get a new opportunity by erasing some of the debt that you had in the past, and it could be a chance for a new start. But on the other hand, in some other countries, bankruptcies can mean a permanent loss of any chance to restart your life. The bankruptcy penalties and the indications that you get from bankruptcy, the records that you get, makes you so ineligible to ever start a business again. So Korea seems to be on the rougher side of those two. Bankruptcy usually for Korea means that your opportunities to get up again is reduced rather than enhanced. So there always has been a talk about bankruptcy reforms, but this has met a lot of resistance, especially by debt holders who understandably don't like the idea that bankrupt companies or bankrupt people can get away with not fully paying their debt. Now, Korea does have a system of debt forgiveness, what's called personal rehabilitation. If a debtor makes an agreed upon repayment, then part of the debt will be forgiven. And this year, about 26,500 people applied, but this is less than where it was in 2019 and 2018 when it was over 90,000 people. So it does seem like people don't have that much of a confidence that they will be able to repay even part of the debt, so they're opting to just file for bankruptcy rather than trying to rehabilitate their situation. So this does indicate that it is a very bad time for starting up a business, and it does point out the need for further, perhaps, bankruptcy reforms.
Well, the statistics you point out very interesting that these figures have been worse in fairly recent years. Finally, Professor, before we go, what's on your radar here as we start a new week?
Okay, well, there's Bank of Korea's September consumer sentiment and business sentiment numbers coming up, and the statistical office will offer the August industrial trend numbers, so we'll get an idea on consumption and production in August. But what's going to be really interesting is the U.S. personal consumption expenditure price index, which comes on Friday. This is the Fed's preferred measure of inflation. So we'll see whether the numbers are high or low. And if the numbers are high, then the chances of Fed accelerating their timetable for tapering and raising the interest rate will rise. If the price index inflation comes out fairly low, then perhaps they will delay tapering and interest rate rise, but we'll have to see the numbers.
Indeed, we'll be watching for those signs later this week. Professor Jun-sok, thank you for sharing your insights with us today. As always, we appreciate it.
Thank you.